What's going on, everybody? This is your man, Big Stu, Scott Stewart, or Professor Stewart, depending on how you know me. And we are back for another edition of Dope People, where we highlight dope people doing dope things, especially in the field of education. And as you know, we are not letting you down this episode, as we have another amazing, dope educational leader. Today we have with us, all the way from Chicago, south side of Chicago, affectionately known as the Wild Hunnets of Chicago, AP Jason Davis, Dunne STEM Academy. AP Davis, welcome to Dope People. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the invite.
Absolutely. So I know a little bit about you. We've had some history together that goes back 6-7 years. It looks like, sounds like.
Dr. Joy.
You were and you are working right now, so we know that your time is precious. You are on the clock right now. We love it. You have been in AP. You were at AP at Jesse Owens.
That's correct.
Some years ago, but now you are at Dunne STEM Academy, which is down the street from Jesse Owens, not too far.
It is.
Anyway, did you always know that you wanted to get into education?
No. I won't call it a fluke. It was some circumstances. So I was a street dude. I had no intentions on going to college, period. It was my high school sweetheart who introduced the concept of college to me. I grew up in the '90s when drug kingpin was at its highlight, and I had foolish aspirations. But when I met my high school sweetheart, ultimately became my wife. She kind of guided me to this thing called college. College. I had no anticipation. She wanted to go to UIC, and I was like, "What's that?" So just so happened one of my guys from the block worked at UIC and a Taco Bell.
Wow.
And he took me down for this Sigma party. I wasn't even familiar with the fraternities and sororities. And he took me down for a Sigma party my junior year in high school. And I walked into this room of about 1,200 Black folks at UIC having the darndest time. And I was like, if this is what college is, this is what I want.
Sign me up.
And and so I went in. My freshman year, I studied accounting in high school. I wanted to be an accountant. And when I got to that point where the College of Business didn't accept me, I started processing my life. And then I started thinking about what I was doing. At the time, I was working for the Park District. I was doing some rec leading, which is also another one of those forks in the road that gave me access to young folks who weren't Urkel-like, who were in college. And that, in addition to that exposure to actual C in college, I was just like, I got to figure out how to get kids like me over this hump. And so initially I was going into high school. I was like, but it's too late in high school. Like by the time I get to high school, I've dropped out already. So I figured I need to catch them in that middle grades so that I can be some inspiration to get them to the next person to get them through. So
hold on. You giving us a lot through the gate. You coming out slinging, man. So listen, hold on, because you jumping ahead just a little bit.
Okay, my bad.
So that's okay. That's all right. I'm gonna get back to that. We're gonna dig back in, but before we go any further, we do have a little format here, right?
Okay.
So we got a little bit about who you are and where you are today, and we got a little bit about how you kind of got there. But wait a minute. We got to open this up a little bit. We do a thing on Dope People called This or That, right?
Okay.
So it's just it's an icebreaker. You familiar?
Let's do it.
All right, you familiar with This or That?
I'm not.
All right, so This or That, I give you two choices, this one or that one, and you pick the first one that comes to your mind. Don't try to ponder it too much.
Absolutely.
Or right answers, just this one or that one, right?
Okay.
All right,
you got it.
Here we go. Talk or listen?
Listen.
White meat or dark meat?
It's not fair. White meat.
Pancakes or waffles?
Pancakes.
City or suburb?
City.
Day or night?
Day.
Text or call?
Call.
Library or museum?
That's a good one. Museum.
Love or money?
Love all day long.
Book or movie?
Oh, that's tricky. Um, let's go with book.
Fire or ice?
Fire.
Teachers or parents?
Parents.
Teachers or principals?
Teachers.
PWI or HBCU?
That's a rhetorical question. Yeah, HBCU.
Now, did you go to you didn't go to HBCU though, did you?
Nah, man, I was at Jackson State homecoming this weekend, and
Oh
I
yeah,
called my
yeah.
daughter and I said, "You, I don't like to force things on you, but you are absolutely going to a HBCU. You deserve this experience." So no, I went to a PWI, and
Okay.
it's the only regret in life I have. The
Going to
only regret in life I have.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you for completing the round of this or that. That is a staple here on Dope People. You did your thing with that. You was firing back. So that gives people an opportunity to kind of know who you are under the layers, right?
Mhm.
But as you were describing kind of your journey, because you used the term you were looking for kids who weren't Urkel like.
Mhm.
What did you mean by that? Urkel. What's
From the
Urkel?
media perspective in the '90s, there were no like there weren't depictions of black folk in college that were smart and didn't have that nerdy feel.
Wait, wait,
And
wait!
so
You didn't come up from the Cosby and
the
the
different
Hillman and
world,
different world like that wasn't you, huh?
the irony is Urkel got more publicity than Different World, right? And
Ah,
so Urkel was a bigger thing on Friday night. Like that's what that TGIF was all about, exposure. And so the dominant figure of Friday night was this nerdy black dude, which has its benefits, right? But at the same time, I was looking for something a little bit more balanced coming out of the street. I couldn't accept Urkel as a part of me. But as part of the street, I knew that this street persona wasn't mine either. And so I needed something that was in the middle. And that job offered me that.
what kind of student were you? Sixth grade on through high school, sixth through
So great
12th grade.
question. That's
What
exactly
kind of
the
student were you?
up through sixth grade, I was a fantastic student. My last day of sixth grade was the first time I got shot at. And I'll never forget it, June 19th, 1991. And that was my introduction into the streets. And from that next 3 years, I really struggled seventh, eighth, ninth grade. I had an uncle commit suicide in my junior year of high school, and that's when that switch clicked on about college, and then having my high school sweetheart giving me some guidance. So that's what got me out of the streets. It was a series of traumas that said this life ain't for me. I ain't about that life, and I knew it was something a little bit more promised for me, and so I had to make the transition. And that job was that transition for me, working for the Park District.
Yeah, man, that's heavy, bro. At sixth grade, going into seventh grade, you getting where you from? You from Chicago? You
I'm
raised in
South Side, born and raised, product of Auburn Gresham, Foster Park in particular. Went to Paul Cuffey up to sixth grade. Left sixth grade, left Paul Cuffey. It only went to sixth grade at the time. Went to Vanderpool Magnet School because my mom didn't want me to go to a traditional black school, especially not Calumet, CVS, Simeon.
Yeah.
She got me over to Bogan to give me some diversity and get me as far away from the hood as possible. It was a
Yeah.
great move on her part.
Did you? So you didn't see yourself in education. You never
I
saw.
didn't see myself alive, brother. Like, honestly, I didn't see myself alive past 15, 18. I counted all the way up to about 25 before I stopped counting in disbelief that I made it this old. And so, I honestly, education was the farthest thing from my mind, further and farthest thing from my mind, in degree and distance, because I didn't have a vision for myself at that point.
Vision.
And yeah, I didn't have a vision for what I looked like as a college graduate. I didn't have vision for what I looked like as a high school graduate. I thought I was going to be a byproduct of Foster Park, and then I was going to do all the game bang stuff and make all the money until you start seeing all the death. Death. It was just too much death for me, and that was my north star from out of the hood.
You are now working at Dunne STEM Academy.
Absolutely.
On 108th
Eighth and Union.
Union, right?
Best job I ever had in my life,
Best
hands
job
down.
you ever had in your life. You're affecting the lives of so many young people who are attracted to the allure of the streets, whether they want to be or they're being pulled into it.
Mhm.
What are you saying to these young men today?
Young men and women. So let
What
me
are you
just be
saying
clear.
to
I'm speaking to both. I got this book over here in my cabinet behind me. And it's all my obituaries. And it's the obituaries of all my guys, former students that have been killed over the last 30 years. And for me, you have a choice. And I tell everybody says, it's where they come from. They have no choice. I did it. I know it was a choice. And so it's a choice to pick up a pistol. It's a choice to sell dope. It's a choice to jump on some folks. Like those were all decisions that we willingly accepted. And so I'm letting them know that these are the outcomes of these decisions that we're making. And what we're doing in this building every day is trying to provide you with a different set of options to select from so that you don't have to have this outcome. And so I don't talk to them like they foolish. I don't talk to them like I'm correct. It might not be the best decision for them at this time in their life because when I was out there, nobody could tell me that what I was doing was wrong. But what I will say is that I want to make sure they have enough options in here, and not only options but exposure too. And so we want to make sure that we're not just giving them options in the building, but we're taking them outside to see things. Because you were talking about mentors. I didn't get a mentor until I was 43 years old.
them?
I'm probably in my second month of mentorship, right?
Mhm.
Being a mentee, right? And so much of what I've had to do is trial and error that I'm trying to make sure that we choreograph a few experiences for kids so they don't have to go through this trial and error stage quite the way we did.
Yeah, I wanna put something on you real quick, and so feel free to back out of this. I have been critical of educational leaders here in Chicago specifically. That many of the educational leaders are not pushing the needle, pushing the envelope on what could be for fear of, losing their job. How are you innovating post-pandemic learning today?
Some of it is the innovation is really rooted in a couple things. It's really rooted in going back old school. The village is falling apart, and the school was the center of the village, so to speak. And so the big piece for us is getting curriculum that is completely robust, that is challenging students academically, but giving them some non-academic experiences at the same time. And so I think part of the problem with schools is that we're pressing, push, 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 push. But pressure bust pipes, and we're all aware of that. You have to give these kids time to be children. And so part of that process for me is saying, hey, step back. We don't need 40 hours of homework or work a week. They're in school for 7, they're doing activities for another 2 or 3, and then we want to give them 2 or 3 hours of homework. Give them an opportunity to balance this life because there's never going to be a time where they're able to be this uh, void of responsibilities because as they get older, the responsibility is going to shift towards them. So making sure we're addressing the whole child and giving them arts. We got just had in terms of innovation, we just finished the construction of our music studio. So we have a full-fledged audio engineering production studio here at our school. So kids are going in 2, 3 days a week. They have after-school class where they are working with gentlemen who is helping them produce from brainstorming to complete recording of their music. We have a wonderful relationship with Polished Pebbles for our young ladies to make sure that they're getting the
Shout
mentorship that
out
we
to
need.
Polished Pebbles. Shout out to
Yeah,
Polished
absolutely. We're working with
Pebbles
Brother
as
Ted
well.
Williams with the 1619 musical. And
Oh,
so we're doing a student rendition of the 1619 musical. And so we're doing these things to make sure, in addition to the fact that we got our basketball coach and volleyball coach. And so just making sure that we have things for kids who have different interests, but at the same time, we're developing our student voice committee so the students will have access to us as administrators, but also to vote on behalf of what the student voice is asking and requiring of us. We're so available. Like they can't just have everything, but
Right.
making sure they have adequate voice to make sure that we understand instead of trying to figure out what they need, making sure that they are speaking to us what it is they need. And so it is not so much, that it's innovative. It's just it is intentional about including all these different voices and perspectives to make sure that everybody's heard. And so the curriculum is here because we want to push you, but the arts are here because we also want to develop you. And so the student voice committee is here because we want to hear you, all of you, your representation of it, so that you understand from childhood, adolescence, what it's like to be a contributing member of society and not waiting until you're 18 and 21,
Mm-hmm.
when oftentimes it's too late and you're disinterested in participating anyway.
Mm-hmm. Man, let's dig in. What's working for you as an educator today?
Um, so, Tricky question. What's working is kids are showing up. Schools are still alive. They still have relevance. What's working for me is that I have an amazing leader. My principal's amazing. Shout out to Chandra. Very right. She is innovative in her thinking. She comes up with these ideas of creating these experiences for Black children in particular. And so let me be clear. I'm a Black educator of Black children on purpose. Like there is no coincidence that I'm here. This is very intentional. And so working for her, she is intentional about making sure that this widespread of activities and opportunities exist for children. And so what is working is that I have a leadership that really appreciates the thoughtfulness we put in the children. What also was working is that she's been here and we have a collective history. She's been here 17 years as the head of this building, 18 years. And so that family like environment that has been created allows us access to families and students in ways that most schools would envy, right? What is working is that we have a staff that is about the business of children. And so as a result of that, we get to push in ways that other schools might not be able to. What's working is, and No Brown knows in here, I work for a network chief that is about the business of people. And so he takes care of his people. My deputy and my chief, they are people persons. They're trying to develop us as leaders, but they're also holding us accountable for making sure we deliver for students. And so what's working is that we're keeping children first. And as long as we're keeping children first, we're making decisions that, regardless of who may like or dislike them, it's about making sure we develop children who are well-rounded, exposed, and competent enough to go and be competitive wherever they want to be.
Man, it's dope. It's a lot of things working. That's great.
Man, best job I ever had,
That's
hands down.
awesome. Shout out to your principal again. She is phenomenal. Um, and your network chief as well. Uh, so, I have to ask you the opposite question. What's challenging for you in
It's
education?
a lot that's challenging too, brother.
What's keeping you up at night? What's keeping
Nothing's
you up
keeping
at
me
night?
up at night. I'm doing my diligence and taking care of myself. I can't stay up for things I can't correct, and some things are just bigger than me. And so the things that are bigger than me, the biggest thing that I struggle with that is a challenge is the unraveling of the Black family. And so as you see the Black family crumble into pieces slowly but surely, you see this impact that the impact is having on children. What I'm struggling with is the lack of mental health support overall that we need for children and their families. And the teachers as well. Like I'm the administrators, I think we all need counseling at this point. It's not just a pandemic. Everybody talks about, oh, since COVID. No, it's been prior to COVID. I tell everybody, our boys have been pre-suicidal. You can look at by the way they neglect their physical appearance, right? That failure to wash up and groom yourselves on a daily basis speaks to the mental stress that you're processing that you aren't getting any help with. So our kids have been stressed and depressed because they're laced up with what was it, lean or the pills they're popping or the hypersexuality. All these things are indicators that there's a greater problem. And unfortunately, our soil is tainted, and we got to do a better job of cleaning it up. What I'm struggling with is again, childhood depression. Looking at the suicidal rates, looking at the number of students that need to be SAS because they are having suicidal ideations. Um, What I'm struggling with is the value for friendship over parenthood. And so we want to be friends more so than we want to be parents. And so we're not really accountable for where our babies are, and our babies are in places where they're being, unfortunately, harmed or killed at times of hours they shouldn't be out because we're more concerned with being friends than parents. I know that might be controversial for some, but that's how I feel. I feel like we need to get back to parenting. And what is working, what isn't working, or what's challenging, um, is that we're losing the value for education across the board. And while the pandemic it picked up and we had this increase in appreciation for it, as we begin to move further and further away from that quarantine period, we're going back to that place where that's y'all problem, not recognizing that by this not being our problem, it becomes our problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're working together, it's ours to solve. If we're not working together, it's ours to accept, tolerate, deal with. And unfortunately, when we're, dealing with these problems, they're the detriment to the entire community. And I just feel like as we uh, publicize or put all this stuff on social media, whether it's the videotaping of people's loved ones who've been slain in vehicles and sharing that in a school community, or whether it's the over sexualization of girls and their desire to show that because that's what the trends are saying. Those are the challenging things because I don't see real remedies to those anytime soon.
Damn, man, that's a whole word, and it's heavy. That's
Very.
a word, heavy, heavy. Having said that, in your mind, if money's not an option, you could have it your way. What does the future of education look like? What does the new educational environment look like?
It definitely has to be a school that is comprised of wraparound services. We need multiple social workers and counselors in our building daily, not just to help kids process their traumas, but also kind of like we need life coach in addition, counselors or life coaches to kind of give them some trajectory, because very much like me, they don't see themselves in the future, and so I'm not unaware of their lack of vision for themselves. It's hard to talk about something you can't see. And so when you don't see yourself as a man, or you're afraid to grow up because me and your family didn't grow up, or they wanted to be held back, whatever the case is, it's hard to envision what it looks like down the road. And so we need people here to help guide children about what you think. I see people talk about manifestations all day. Nobody should have to wait until their 20s or 30s before they find that out. Why are we having these conversations with kids? And to mix that with work ethic too, because it's not just about wishing and rubbing on this genie and hoping that you get this wish. It's about here's where I want to be, and here are the incremental steps that we need to get there. So we need mentors, we need counselors, we need life coaches to guide kids through that. We need a consistent plan for resources. How do we replenish computers every 5 years? How do we retrain teachers every 3 to 4 years to make sure that they're up to date? How do we keep people from being complacent? What is our intentionality about it? Not just because they have to recertify for the board, but what is our intention as a district or as a school even to make sure that everybody's getting access to these new philosophies, pedagogical techniques, so that they can move forward in a way that doesn't get outdated? Because reality is we don't want to leave any teachers behind, because if we leave teachers behind, then we leave students behind. And so you can't do one without the other. If you're gonna touch the teacher, got to touch the student. If you're gonna touch the student and the teacher, you got to address the content. And so you can't address one without the other. And so just making sure that we have a plan to ensure that teachers are being updated, students are being pushed, and content is staying relevant. And when I say relevant, I don't mean it's all full of black stuff. Like a lot of we talk about culturally relevant stuff, but the beauty in learning is learning from people who aren't like you. We don't want to be xenophobic in our learning, because we're no different than the folk that we might be complaining about when we only want to dwell in us. There are some relevancies and what folks went through in the Middle Passage, what they went through during the Holocaust, what they're going through in Jerusalem, I mean, or in Israel right now, or what it looks like on the motherland as they try to go from third world to second world countries as their economies are booming. But also, if I can be real honest with you, teaching our kids to be more about producing than consuming. And
Mm-hmm.
so we have to get into a mindset where our children aren't just the consumers of social media, retail therapy and consumption of all this materialistic stuff, but they're producers of high quality services and goods. And I say high quality because just because I'm black don't mean I need to support you if you got a whack service or a whack good. I should be able to support you because you provide a dope service or a dope good that I enjoy and I feel comfortable investing in. And so helping them understand the beauty of work ethic, helping them understand the beauty of producing, helping them understand the beauty of ownership, and giving them relevant interactions from kindergarten on in terms of production and ownership and leadership so that they're not always looking to beg for the job. My man Big Cal told me when I was thinking about dropping out of undergrad, and he said, you're supposed to go to college to create jobs, Jason, not to get jobs. And nobody had ever told me anything like that before. And
Mm,
so imagine if you plant that seed in a kindergartner, they
mm,
go through this world developing the mindset that I am going to make jobs for people who look like me and train them the way they're supposed to. I was looking at
mm.
something real quickly, slightly on par. Afro Joe's had this reel today, and it's like, y'all wonder why we take off every Monday because every Monday I spend my time developing my staff to make sure that we keep growing each and every week. And so he was showing why they're how they're in this coffee roasting facility. And so the intentionality behind it is that if it's constantly iterated and reiterated, it's the seed is being planted in a way that as I develop and make moves, I can be successful. So that's what I'm looking forward to. We got a lot of entrepreneurs here. We have a lot of people who own a whole variety of goods and services, but figuring out honestly, and I'll be done after this, figuring out how to channel a little bit more collective effort from the Black community. Too many of us are doing all of our own individual things, and if we can begin to work a little bit more in conjunction with each other, I think it shows our kids what community looks like and how to begin to move forward as a community.
Bro, I'm so glad that you were tagged in my post about looking for dope black male APs, because you absolutely fit the bill, man. You're doing some amazing, innovative, revolutionary.
Thank
Shout
you,
out
bro.
to my man Amen Ra. Revolutionary work over here. I'm longing for more educational leaders like yourself to have these conversations, and so other people can hear and know. To your point, I think a lot of us work in silos in education here in Chicago, specifically because it's just not supported to be innovative and creative. It doesn't. These are my words, not yours. These are
Mm-hmm.
my personal
Understood.
words. The fact to know that there are educational leaders and teachers who have businesses and who are entrepreneurial, that stuff needs to be supported and put on
Absolutely.
display, so, as the demonstration for our young people.
Absolutely.
My biggest takeaway from today, and it's something that I'm going to begin to institute today, is starting with babies young, that they are to go to school to learn to create jobs, not get a job. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's hugely game changing,
Yeah.
um, and phenomenal. Is there anything that you're working on, or anything that you want people to know that we haven't touched on, that you think is super important before we get out of here today?
You know, what I'll say is this. Uh, Self-care isn't just about nail salons and pedicures and massages. It's about doing some real work to save yourself. The facade in which we typically present ourselves in is not what's going to save us or our children. And so it's important that we do the work so that we don't continue to inflict trauma on the children um, that we're vicariously being traumatized by, right? Because every time a student gets killed or a former student gets killed, every time a parent dies, us as educators, we kind of absorbing some of that energy because they're connected to us. And so for me, I guess the greatest thing for me is uh, having consistent, intentional sessions to work on my own well-being. And so my self-care is probably the most important thing to me, maintaining my own mental health because it took a lot of work to get here. There were times where this job was eating me alive. Uh, with greater work and greater responsibility, but greater intentionality around being healthy. mentally, physically, financially, spiritually, it allows for the work to not consume me the way it once used to. And so, for educators and non-educators, for me, uh, get in, find somebody that can help you process this thing called life in a healthy way, and do it in a way that you can become. Uh, I don't want to say I'm healed. I'm healing, and healing in a way that it's ongoing because I'm always uncovering new wounds that need to be addressed, and heal in a way that I'm not inflicting pain and trauma on children who don't deserve it because of what I refuse to acknowledge. And I think that's the big piece for me. Work on yourself, in and out.
I want to thank you for making education uh, look cool, be cool. I wish you could be duplicated.
Thank you,
There's
brother.
a need for you and the work that you do as an educational leader. You speak well, brother. You got there's so many, there's so many clips that could be taken from this conversation that I'm sure other
By
folks
all
will
means,
duplicate.
take all you need.
Absolutely. Well, you'll have access to this as well.
And I'm honored
So,
to be here, brother. I
oh
honestly,
man,
yeah,
this
I
ain't for
appreciate the
everybody.
invite.
This ain't a platform for everybody. This is a very exclusive platform. And so it's an honor to have you here. It's an honor to have this conversation with you. I
Thank you
never
again.
knew that this would be what it is, but I'm delighted. I'm thankful that you're here and you're sharing with us today.
Absolutely.
Um,
I'd be honored to come back again.
yeah, no. I think we talked about some stuff in the pregame that folks should look out for. We're gonna do some dope stuff, and here on Dope People, you are officially dope stamped. Uh,
Thank
Now, let me say, you didn't need that stamp from us. You were already dope, and
you.
so
Thank you,
we just
brother.
putting a stamp on you. You was already dope. It ain't because of us, but you are dope. We think you dope. We appreciate what you're doing, your contributions to this workspace, and we look forward to hearing more from you in the future and doing some greater works with you, brother.
Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you. And to all of our listeners, whether you are new or reoccurring, we always appreciate you. You already know what it is. Until next time, peace.
Take care and thank you again.